district's been working towards for several years. We have DEQ's blessing to go to bids, so we're at that point where we can advertise the project. It will be advertised through the local newspaper, and we will have it bid through our online system where contractors can see the specifications, the drawings, they can purchase those so that they can bid the project and submit their bids and questions and everything through that. I think what Kelly needs to get out of the board today is just your thumbs up that we can proceed with bidding that project. I'm sure there's plenty of questions around that, so I want to make sure that we answer those today, and by all means, if there's further questions before we go to bid, feel free to reach out to me, phone, email. I know that stuff might come up, but I've included a rough schedule of what this would look like. Basically, if the board approves advertising the project at today's meeting, we could have it in the newspaper on something like Wednesday next week, and then it has to advertise twice per state code, so it would run again on the 31st, and then we would allow, say, another 2 weeks-ish to give contractors enough time to gather their pricing, work with subcontractors, material quotes, etc. So the bids would be due sometime middle of September, second half of September, if that sounded reasonable. And one thing before we advertise it, we just need to know what a good day of the week and time is for the bid opening. One thought I had was to do it at maybe like the tail end of the district's normal operating hours. The bids could be due, maybe an hour before you guys are done for the day, and then we could open them and read them aloud publicly. For example, we just need to know what time so we can advertise the bid due date. So that's where I'm at with that. I guess I would entertain questions and conversation on getting this to bid. Super exciting.
Yeah.
Ben, do you feel this is a good time of year? We've caught it in the fall. We maybe have got a leg up on others that might be doing it into January, December.
So I think in terms of, two thoughts on that. In terms of actually building a lot of the project, it's not the best time. Like building as much of the project this year, it's not an ideal time, right? Because we are getting close to winter. However, from a pricing standpoint, I think we'll be much more competitive because we've seen the market start to slow down.
Yeah.
And one thing that I think we can do where we're bidding this and we're not in a rush to get, like in the spring where we're like, oh, we have to get this to bid now so that we can work in the summer. We can give the contractors a little bit more time, even in the contract itself, a procurement period, so that they can take advantage of that for longer lead times on products. It's not actually eating away their contract days, for example. And I think doing that, we'll be able to get more competitive pricing going out to bid now than in the spring. We just probably won't be able to build, as much of the project, right? Because we're towards the tail end of the construction season.
So I can make myself available to stay late to accept bids, but you said something about accepting them until mid-September?
Well, we would have bids due like that week of, say, September 14th. Jesse, if I just knew what day or the week after that, like what day of the week works for you, and we have to have, we don't have to have the entire board present, but we do need the owner's representative there for when we open the bids, so that, the engineer's there, the owner's there, the contractors are there, witnessing that the bids were open publicly, that they were read aloud, and that follows, the state code and everything for a bid opening, if that makes sense. So I just need to know, is it Tuesday or Wednesday, and then approximate what time would work, and then we can advertise that
Okay.
as the
gonna just throw some information out there. The week of the 14th is also, we have our regular meeting on the 15th. I don't know if it would be good to combine them or separate them. Separate them, you think?
I would think separate them. The bids and the people qualifying for all that stuff, they don't care about any of this. And we don't wanna slow this down nor slow that down. It could just cause it to go an extra hour longer or something. I would say Wednesday, do it at the end of the day. Wednesday would be my suggestion. He has the 14th on there already, but.
Yeah, if we did the 14th, could we just make them due maybe an hour? Bids would be due an hour before the board meeting. And then we would open bids a half hour before your board meeting. We'd be able to, we'd know what the results were, and then you could proceed with your normal business.
Well, our meeting is on the 15th. My comment then was that we probably don't need to do it at the same time as the board meeting, because
I see.
it doesn't have a lot of reflection on back and forth. The 14th would be fine at the end of the day.
How long did you think that presentation would take, Ben? I missed that.
It'll only take, somebody just needs to be there at the district office to receive the bids from the contractors when they come in. They'll just come in an envelope basically that's sealed. And then, and that needs to be at like 2 p.m. on Wednesday, for example. I'm just gonna throw out an example. And then shortly after that, once the bids have been received, we would open and read them aloud publicly.
So it wouldn't necessarily have to be a regular, it wouldn't necessarily need a quorum.
No.
They just,
We just need representation.
We're just accepting the bids, and
we need to be able to publish have it in by certain time, and then afterwards we'll open them.
yeah, I don't know, you know, if we could handle it during our regular business meeting, it doesn't sound like it's anything,
We could do it early on Thursday.
yeah. Would it have to be
Yeah, let's
early on
do that.
Thursday? Could it be part of our meeting?
We could do it as a meeting before our regular meeting, so open them, announce them aloud, and then we go into our regular meeting. We
Yeah,
can
I
close
would
that.
be more in favor of that.
Okay.
Sure.
Jesse, if you just follow up with the date and time for that, and then I'll coordinate with you on when we're gonna have them due, so that, you know, someone's there and is receiving the bids from the contractor, and then I'll be there, or Kyle will be there, both of us, to actually open them, read the numbers aloud, and then we'll have, all that done publicly, so.
Okay, yeah, we can do that at 3, and then we'll close that and then go into our regular meeting at 3:30. So if September 15th at 3, so maybe submissions are due by 2.
Yeah, I think that works awesome.
Okay.
Good, yeah. 24 hours is gonna make that much difference.
And if you guys have more questions after today's meeting, like, as this is going out to bid, by all means, like, please ask them. Like, there's no dumb questions. Construction isn't gonna happen tomorrow. There is gonna be a month for bidding, and then we'll award, and, it'll take some time for them to mobilize. So, like, if we have some time to get everyone on the same page, just, feel free to reach out to me.
So then, this is Pat, I do have a question.
Uh-huh.
So they'll have basically, what, 3 weeks to put together a bid? Is that a normal kind of time for a bid for a project like this?
They'll have close to 4 weeks if we advertise on the 24th. I think the intent was to give them 4 weeks. But maybe I am off a week if I'm mistaken.
Well, I might not have looked at my calendar, but it just seems like that's a short time. And I just wondered what was normal. Or would be.
About a month is normal.
from next Wednesday.
But if we're not advertising
No, it's
until the 24th.
It's a month.
1, 2,
That's just my question, my dumb question.
I think if I remember right, looking at a calendar, I see how the dates are confusing, but I do think it gets, doesn't that get 4 weeks, or am I off a week?
You're off a week, it's 3 weeks.
Mhm.
If it advertises on the 24th, the 31st is 1 week, the 7th is 2 weeks, the 14th is 3.
Oh, cause.
So we'll wanna do, I apologize for that, we're gonna wanna do, and that's a good catch, Pat, the following week after the 14th then, to make them do, so that won't jive with your board meeting, but as long as someone's there to represent the owner, we'll be just fine for the bid opening.
Well, then we should do it on the 15th when you, or, I mean, the 21st when somebody's here in the office. Otherwise, we don't staff our office on Thursdays, so we'll move it back to the Wednesday when we have people in the office. That'll be the 21st.
Okay. Wednesday, the 21st, at what time?
2? Well, 3, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we could just do, still a 3 o'clock meeting to read them aloud and submissions due by 2. Just move it from September 15th to 21st.
Okay.
Okay?
I apologize, I think that 14th was our original schedule before we waited to, get board approval before proceeding with the bids, so thanks for working with me on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Should we talk about on-call costs and the ARPA funding?
Yes.
So the other important thing, and we've been working with DEQ closely on this, ARPA funding. Bayview is being offered, you're one of 12 recipients or systems that's being offered ARPA funds for existing SRF loan project overages. So this is money for projects that are seeing additional costs due to inflation, market conditions, shortage of materials, etc. We had asked for this in a letter of interest to DEQ last year, and you ranked high enough to get 100% grant funds for $750,000, which is awesome. And if you remember, as we walked through our cost estimates from the beginning of this project towards our 90% design, basically we've been short, our engineering estimates are forecasting we're short by approximately this amount. So getting that should give us enough money on top of the SRF loan to do the entire project. So this is awesome. All that needs to be done is Keller can submit the written request accepting the funding. We just need to do that by September 2nd. I provided to the board a letter that addresses their criteria. There's 4 criteria that they wanted in the written response. There's no other requirements to receive the funding. The funding's essentially available almost immediately. Once we get the letter in and get bid results, and that goes through DEQ, then we'll be able to tap into that funding. So, if everything looks good in the letter that we put together and the board wants to proceed with that, we'll get that submitted before the September 2nd deadline. The other piece of good news is that an additional amount of ARPA grant funds in the of $393,000 is also being offered to the district, and this is for some additional project work that we had requested through the LOI that equated to about $950,000. This is all grant funds as well. The board does need to match the additional to meet the 950. However, you can do that with your SRF loan. So this is basically an additional $393,000 grant funds that's available to you. you through that process, answered questions and everything. We've been working with DEQ closely on it to understand this. But yeah, Baby is literally the only system that's being offered both packages of grant funds that I'm aware of, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That is stellar, Ben.
That's great.
Thank you guys for your hard work.
Yeah, absolutely. And if that sounds good, we'll proceed with submitting this to DEQ, accepting the funds, and then, we'll be here every step of the way to help you out through the process and answer questions.
Jesse, we were gonna approve that letter, right?
Yeah, you don't have to approve it now. If that's later, that's fine. I was just saying that we need that decision before the second so we can submit the letters.
Yeah, basically it's authorization to proceed with the publication for bidding, authorization to submit the acceptance of the 750 to ARPA, and then to the acceptance for the 393,
Oh,
the letter application.
is it 3 motions or 1? Because, well, it's update discussion, I guess, here. We're on item 4, right? How do we want to do this?
Yeah, correct. It wouldn't take a motion, but you can get just direction from the board. We do have item number 1 though, is the approval for the phase 1 plans and specifications.